Everybody. Oops, sorry. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our webinar. Today we have a very valuable speaker, Martin Hammer. He's an architect based in California, and he's a co-director of Builders Without Borders. He has focused on sustainable building throughout his 35 years of career, and including advancing natural building systems such as straw bale, straw clay, adobe COP, and hempcrete in building codes, which is very new for us. We still don't have those such codes in Turkey. He has worked extensively in promote sustainable buildings practices in post-earthquake Pakistan, Haiti, and Nepal, which he will today present us his experiences through those examples and for us to get some hints from them. So it's better for me to now leave the word for Martin. Welcome, Martin. We are on you.
Thank you, Ekin, and welcome everyone. That was a good introduction, and you can see on the title slide the essence of what I'll be talking about today. And yeah, I hope everyone can find something that's useful or of interest to them in this presentation. But it will specifically be about, or mostly about, my work post-earthquake in Pakistan, Haiti, and Nepal. With that, because I don't know how many people are familiar with straw bale building, I just wanted to start very quickly about the origins of straw bale building. The first buildings were built in the United States in the state of Nebraska in the late 1800s using straw bales as building blocks instead of what had been done to that time using sod. And many of these early buildings are still in use, more than 100 years old. You can see a straw bale that was removed from a 1913 straw bale building, and the bale is almost like it was baled yesterday. It's still in very good condition, speaking to the longevity of the material. And throughout the world, there was a renaissance in straw bale building in the 1980s and into the 1990s. And today there are straw bale buildings in over 50 countries worldwide, including Turkey, as you can see, which I highlighted in bold and underlined in that list. And I'm saying these few words about straw bale building because that has been central to my work in sustainable building in the three countries that I mentioned: Pakistan, Haiti, and Nepal. So just a bit about the earthquake in Pakistan. It was the Kashmir earthquake in 2005, a magnitude 7.8 earthquake in northern Pakistan. The earthquake resulted in over 86,000 deaths and injured over 130,000 and left 3.5 million homeless in northern Pakistan. And maybe this is a good time to just express my sympathies and best wishes to everyone in Turkey and Syria, everyone affected by the earthquake. I learned some about it since it occurred in February, and I know it's hard for everyone in the region. So I just wanted to express that to everyone. I hope, having gone through this process in 3 other countries, I know it's challenging. I know it's difficult, but I'm hoping things work out for the best for everyone. I helped found an organization after the Kashmir earthquake in Pakistan called Pakistan Straw Bale and Appropriate Building, the acronym PAKSBOB. With its mission there, you can see to build high performance natural homes and improve livelihoods for marginalized families. This is the first, PAKSBOB's first building, Straw Bale Building, which is a women's job training center in Jabori. The woman here, I don't know if people can see my cursor. This is Darcy Messner. She's an engineer, civil engineer in California. She's the primary founder and the continued director of PAKSBOB. This is in November of 2006. We met with government officials and National Engineering Services Pakistan, NESPAC, to try to gain approval of our straw bale building system. This is very important working post-earthquake in any location to connect with the government officials and understand how the reconstruction is going to occur. I don't know much about what's happening. I've heard a little bit about Turkey, but I'd like to know more about what's happening there. In that meeting, or subsequent to that meeting, the NESPAC did grant very limited approval for 12 houses, 12 straw bale houses. When we first met with them, one of the first things they said was, "We wish you were here a year earlier." And that's one of the things that I learned over the years is the importance of making those kind of connections early in the process with government officials. We just didn't know at the time, and we just made the best of what we had available. I'm going to walk through some of the construction. This is the sixth house that PAKSBOB built, showing the system, trying to use as many in-country materials, low-tech materials as possible. So rubble trench foundations, there's a gravel bag stem wall, straw bale walls, and then site-built trusses. Whoops, get back there. This is a little bit of a jolt, relative to what I just showed, but I show this. This is a Pakistani military vehicle en route to Swat Valley to fight the Taliban. This was in northern Pakistan in 2006. Just driving by the site we were working on, and I show up really to just to say that every location has its own environment, its own situation, social, political, economic, everything that goes into the total environment of where you're working. And this was just happened to be what was happening at the time when we were working in Pakistan. The straw bales, it was very gratifying to be able to take the local straw and turn it into bales. We made bales with steel compression molds because there's no industrialized agriculture, at least in that region of Pakistan at the time. So they're manually made bales, as you can see. Systems evolve over time, and we changed from the gravel bag stem wall to a stone foundation, the cement mortar, largely because the masons or the builders we were working with had a lot of experience with masonry, and they're very good masons, and so they weren't as comfortable with the gravel bags, and so this is an example of just the learning going in both directions and working together as a team. Then stacking the bales, excuse me, with opposing bamboo pins that are through tied. This is a really elegant system that I've used frequently over the years. And I'm going to see if this works, this video. Yep, that didn't go. Here we go. Sorry about that. Try it one more time. So I, I hope that brings it to life a little bit for people. And then continuing, the site-built roof trusses, corrugated roofing before the bales are ready for plaster. Use clay plaster both for the first coat and then to a clay lime plaster for the second coat. Insulate the attic ceilings with straw clay and then finish it with a reed mat ceiling. The interior walls generally were wattle and daub. And then the exterior finish to make it more durable with lime plaster and a lime wash. Excuse me. We did have some problems with lime plaster spalling when it's applied directly to a clay plaster, so that's the reason for going. That's the reason for going from clay to clay lime to lime plaster, which bonds better. Until 2012, earthen floors were installed, but since then, concrete floors have been installed at the homeowner's insistence. It's not as green, certainly, as the earthen floors, but there are a lot of issues regarding people's perception about what's modern and what's clean and durable. It's a struggle with natural building, not just with floors, but kind of across the board. It's not an unusual struggle to have. We explored other sustainable technologies like a rocket stove mass heater, and then you can see a batch solar water heater. In 2008 and 2009, PaxBob conducted a seismic research and testing program, which was very important in terms of us really knowing how safe the system was. It was largely, we felt comfortable with it conceptually, but we wanted to do testing to assure ourselves, but also to provide confidence to others that the system was earthquake safe. So we did in-plane cyclic tests. You can see a wall specimen here, which enabled us to know allowable shear capacities for the wall system. And then a full-scale, a small but still full-scale house specimen shake table test. You can see some damage to the plaster. There were eight tests of increasing acceleration, the last one being 1.4 times the peak ground acceleration of the 2005 Kashmir earthquake. So in the course of 8 tests, damage was done little by little, and I'm going to show you the video of the last test, the 8th test.
This what we are watching is the peak test, right? The test number 8.
Test number 8, yeah. So it did sustain damage, but our main goal is to prevent collapse, and so it was very successful in that regard. Merv, maybe you can, or someone, I don't know if people are hearing the audio on the video.
I couldn't hear the audio. I think
It's not so important, but I was just curious. So there is a little bit of audio. So if you weren't hearing audio, there was a loud applause at the end of the test. But that view is from the interior. So the Pakistan straw bale houses cost half the same size house as the reinforced concrete block house that was authorized by the government, the Earthquake Reconstruction and Rehabilitation Authority. But they provide better thermal comfort, need less 80% less fuel to heat, and are generally more environmentally friendly. So PaxBob has built 40 projects, including 38 houses from 2006 to 2015. Here you can see these two images, or two houses, two buildings, really, one's not a house, regarding care and maintenance. So the one at the top is a conference room for the Imran Khan Foundation in Islamabad. And then the one on the bottom is a home that was constructed a year earlier in 2010. And what was originally designed as a conference room, you can see the lime washes worn by the weather, whereas the house on the lower image, the lime wash is in excellent condition. And we had similar observations for other buildings, that buildings that are occupied by the owner, they tend to take better care of the building. The conference room for the Imran Khan Foundation, they ultimately began using it as storage, so it didn't receive the same kind of care as it should. Oops. So this was house 40 in 2014, a skipper recipient for those severely injured by the earthquake. And then this image, in speaking with the primary founder, Darcy Messner, just a few days ago, she brought up these terms that she heard frequently in Pakistan, and I think also in India. Of course, Pakistan was part of India until the partition in the 40s. But this struggle that I mentioned a bit earlier, these terms, the Kacha house and the Paka house, that these perceptions about what's modern and what's not, and what's durable and what's not, is a struggle that natural building often encounters. And these terms, I'm seeing that they're even, it's in school curriculum. Young kids are being taught the difference between a modern house and one that's not modern and one that's not durable. So I'm going to move now to Haiti. Onto Haiti. This is 2010, the Haiti earthquake. You can see a little bit of magnitude 7.0 and where it struck in really almost the center of the largest population region in Haiti. The earthquake damage was just massive. It was extensive and massive. It was not like nothing I've ever seen. Here's the National Cathedral before and after the earthquake. 13 of 15 major government buildings, full or partial collapse, including the presidential palace. And Haiti's death toll, somewhere between 160 and 230,000, and the displaced persons probably well over 1 million, although these numbers remain in dispute. And a little, again, here we're in different contexts than Pakistan. There's some similarities, but some major differences as well. And this disparity between the rich and poor is not certainly confined to Haiti. It's worldwide. It always has been that way on some level worldwide. And I think there are increasing disparities over recent decades, but in Haiti, it's even more extreme. It's one of the most extreme divides between the wealthy and the poor in the world. I was there with a few organizations, including the World Monuments Fund, doing post-earthquake assessment of what are called the gingerbread houses. These are Victorian era buildings, beautiful buildings, wonderful architecture that had a mix of performance in the earthquake. Some suffered damage. You can see the one on the left, the masonry was damaged, whereas the wood building on the right suffered very little damage. It's more a flexible building. And the building on the left has the three wall systems that one finds in these houses, either from the bottom up, it's load-bearing masonry, then it's braced wood frame with masonry infill, and then in the attic is all wood, like the building on the right. So this is one of the braced wood frame building with rubble masonry infill, which I'm saying is a form of earthquake safe natural building in my view. This one suffered damage. It had deteriorated over time, but others let's see. Others view it the same way as me. This is, I don't know how many of you know of Critère, the French organization, natural building and especially earthen building. They're very involved in research and just generally advocating for natural building and sustainable building. They did work in Haiti, and they took that system in that one of the gingerbread houses and utilized it in new construction, as you can see. we produced this book for the World Monuments Fund. And you can see here, it's kind of this conflict between the traditional, or the owners of these traditional and beautiful gingerbread houses, and often these modern reinforced concrete and block buildings that really were quite ugly, frankly, and they express that right here. And then looking to the Haitian vernacular architecture, mostly rural and suburban, it's always important when working in any context to understand the culture and what's culturally appropriate. So we took cues from these wonderful, what are called tikais, small houses, for our straw bale building, which is the first straw bale building in Haiti, which we call a tikai pie, or small that's in Creole means small straw house. And then taking what I learned with my work with straw bale building and other forms of natural building in the United States, but also in Pakistan, carrying that into Haiti. So here's rice straw in the Artibonite Valley, similar to Pakistan, making straw bales with a steel compression mold and a farm jack. We engaged with several Haitians to include them in our team and to help train them, but also learn from them at the same time. It's always a two-way street, learning and teaching. And to my pleasant surprise, this is what he said without us prompting him when he was interviewed by the CBC Radio Canada. When people see the construction, then they really accept it because it's ours. The straw is ours, we make it, we live in it. And that's all about in-country materials. I was really happy to see him understand it so quickly and accept it. So similar to Pakistan, we had used a gravel bag stem wall with concrete bond beam, and we were reusing damaged tarps to make gravel bags. You can see some of the colored ones there. We were making fine aggregate for plaster and some of the bits of concrete that we used with a rubble crusher. And we couldn't find the fishing net that we used in Pakistan, to our surprise. So instead we went with an X configuration steel wire tension ties for the in-plane lateral, and some of the other, but otherwise similar to the Pakistan system. And with again, always looking for resources, what's local, what's readily available, especially reusing things like here, disassembling pallets, of which there were tens of thousands at that time, for the web members in our trusses. We were concerned about moisture. Many people questioned why we would do straw bale in a tropical climate, and we went round and round about it, and ultimately decided, well, there's only one way to find out, and that's just to do it. So we did collect data with these moisture sensors throughout the building, and it performed very well. It stayed well with minor temporary issues. It stayed well within the acceptable limits. Interior and exterior clay plaster. The exterior we finished with a glue coat for durability, and that's held up very well. Bamboo rafters at the veranda. A cob floor, which cob is essentially clay, subsoil, sand, and straw in varying proportions. Also finished with the glue wash for durability. That wasn't quite as successful as it was on the wall because of the foot traffic. and always looking for other complementary sustainable systems like we did in Pakistan. So rainwater catchment and photovoltaic electricity. The team members, finished building. Having a good team is like in any endeavor, and certainly in a building project, is always very important. Other people, so many people came to Haiti. It was just a historic earthquake on so many levels, and people from all over the world came with ideas, and there were so many. I've never seen so many ideas how to rebuild in an earthquake than occurred in Haiti. Our neighbor happened to be an American architect, Michael Reynolds, who created the Earthship concept, which I have personally mixed feelings about. I like the way he uses salvaged materials. Too much cement in his buildings for me, but he was our neighbor, and there were other people too. There was Super Adobe and people trying almost literally everything under the sun. We an Italian group of architects followed us and contacted me, and we helped them a little bit with their design of the second straw bale building in Haiti, which is a storage structure for this rice farm cooperative. So it was nice to see it, one project lead to another. And Haiti, its reconstruction, it was funded primarily by the World Bank, which is really taking in money from many countries all over the world. And the government, it was very different than the way the reconstruction happened in Pakistan, where households were given about $3,000 to rebuild. That didn't happen at all in Haiti. It's a very different social and political environment. But I thought they had what looked like a good idea, this home expo, and there were a handful that I would consider or would call environmentally responsible, or trying to do something that's more green. And so a couple of them I show here. There's this straw bale or straw panel house, this wood fiber panel house, and then this house in the bottom right, which is intended to be cob, but they ultimately didn't build it out. So it was intended to be an earthen structure, but they ultimately built it, I believe, out of some more of a modular masonry material. We had already built our straw bale building, and our funding we didn't have enough funding to build a second building so quickly at the Home Expo, so we didn't do that, but we did build a little straw bale wall section so people could see, and then they could go visit the building that we built. You can see former U.S. President Bill Clinton there with the Haitian president, Michel Martelly at the time. And here's another view of that, our little building, our little wall section. And one of the other buildings there that was creative, this isn't only in Haiti, but it's certainly a bad problem in Haiti about the ubiquitous waste stream, especially plastics, and so what to do with them. So you can try to turn some of them into building materials. You can see this building had some bottles, like a bottle wall, plastic and glass bottle wall, and then salvaged tires. We experimented with a little bit ourselves, what we call, we think a clever name, bottle and daub rhymes with wattle and daub. And so, but using plastic bottles as fill for panels and basically getting them out of the kind of burying them out of sight, and then with mesh and plastering over them. So we built another little building next to the straw bale house, which we call a Semkai, or a simple house, with this bottle daub system, and we did a straw clay wall in the rear as well. I submitted a USAID proposal in 2012 to do a straw bale rural village. They had interest in it, and there was a little bit of back and forth. I mean, this gets into the issue of doing this work and where your funding sources are coming from. This was one idea, so they had interest, and I think it had a lot of promise, but I was so involved in other work that I committed to, I just couldn't follow through with it. So this never came to fruition, but it sometimes is a way. Some of the aid organizations, there's of course USAID and UK aid and other international aid organizations that are potential funding sources. We were doing contract design work. The school that we designed, this also did not come to fruition. Or this second one, an internet cafe. They were really good ideas and I think good designs, but the funding is often an obstacle. So you do what you can, and some of them do eventually get built, but these two did not. And so now on to Nepal. In 2015, there were actually two earthquakes. There's sometimes disagreement or just debate about when something is an earthquake and when it's an aftershock. But in some earthquakes can trigger other earthquakes. So there's a distinction between a real distinction between earthquakes and aftershocks, but there are times when it's not a black and white question. But in this case, for Nepal, these were two distinct earthquakes, probably related. The first one probably triggering the second. I guess it's April and May of 2015. You can see the first one, the stronger one, 7.5, was not too far from Kathmandu, the central or the population center. Yeah, actually that one says 7.5. Here it says 7.8. But the so there you can see again the magnitudes, and then the death toll was significantly lower than I expected and many others. I thought it would be well over 50,000, knowing its proximity to the population center. The buildings actually performed better than I think many people were expecting, self-included. So that's, I mean, 9,000 is still a large number, but even one is too many. But it was, most people thought it was going to be worse when it happened initially. The buildings that suffered the most damage, the cultural heritage structures, which are known worldwide in Nepal. The contemporary low and mid-rise structures in Kathmandu and other urban areas suffered relatively little damage. And so I attribute it to, this is the predominant contemporary building system in the Kathmandu Valley, which is reinforced concrete frame with an unreinforced brick infill. And you can see all three stages here. Here's the concrete frame with the brick, and then plastered, starting to be plastered, and then a finished home. It's actually a relatively simple, relatively inexpensive, and relatively earthquake safe system. So that's what I mainly attribute it to. However, in the rural areas, especially the stone and mud mortar houses and schools suffered significant damage. This is an image of the predominant building system in most of rural Nepal, where it's stone masonry and clay mortar with a clay plaster finish. this building was further away from the earthquakes than well away from Kathmandu Valley. But even here, you can see some cracking that occurred. Closer to the Kathmandu Valley, where I did most of my work, in Kahari, trying to get input from the survivors of the earthquake, or people who lost their homes and needed not only survive the earthquake, of course, but unfortunately lost their homes and needed to rebuild. So we were getting information from them and opinions about what was important to them in terms of rebuilding. And my eyes are always open, looking for what exists that I would consider in the vein of natural building. And that's and natural building for me is this. It's somewhere in this this spectrum from all straw to all earth. So it's basically straw or sometimes other fibers and earth. Some mixture of those are the real mainstays of natural building. So here, there was I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised to find the rammed earth house north of Kathmandu. Built in 2012, the first modern rammed earth house. This gentleman had studied at Harvard and learned about earthen building in the US and then carried it back with him to Nepal. And the building performed quite well in the earthquake. This other really just beautiful building designed by a Nepali architect, Nirpal Adhikari, who's the founder of Abari Builders. This building was constructed after the earthquake on the foundation of this literary archive that was destroyed in the earthquake. And mentioned government interaction before. Having learned my lesson from Pakistan and Haiti, became involved with the government and their work as soon as I could. This was maybe 4 months after the earthquake when I first arrived. So the government put out a design catalog of buildings that they approved for reconstruction. And if you build with one of these designs, you would have access to the funding that they provided, which wasn't a lot, maybe half of, at the most, it would pay for half of what a house would actually cost, a small house, but it was something. And pretty straightforward brick. You can see some of the examples here, mostly brick and stone masonry, but not unlike what was being built at the time, but with improvements like bond beams and other seismic improvements. I was very surprised, again, pleasantly surprised. I think it's amazing what the Nepali government did with this second design catalog. As you can see in the title, is at the top, catalog for alternative construction materials and technologies. Where it was open, they were open to anyone could submit a proposal, which I did for straw bale, and many others did as well. So here's where the kind of the beginnings of this, or part of my submittal for this design, which I essentially used the Pakistan design because it was similar culture or region. That the floor plan and the design mostly worked, and it was already engineered. So I pretty much took the Pakistan design and submitted it. They had the government and the engineers had a lot of interest in it, especially because there's a lot of rice grown in the southern portion of the country. But they ultimately, I had discussions with them. They ultimately just couldn't get to this place where they would they felt comfortable. They couldn't go to a house that was built with this system in Nepal, and to just see it with their own eyes. I think if that had existed, they would have said yes, but they just ultimately were conservative about it and decided not to approve it. There were some, I think, pretty good natural building materials or systems. They approved one for compressed stabilized earth block. See it here. Another one for earth bag masonry. There were 4 earth bag proposals, and they chose only one. And I think they did pick the best one, the one that was best, had the the safest and best engineered system. And then another bamboo and stone masonry hybrid structure. This is something that I don't know if, I don't think this is happening in Turkey or Syria, but it would be great if someone could advocate for something like this, where, yeah, I don't know enough about it, but if there is a way to get the government to and the world, the NGO community, to find a way to bring natural building systems, approved natural building systems into the reconstruction, that would be terrific. Let me know if I can help in that regard. So back to the predominant building system in form in rural Nepal. You can see it here. So I borrowed heavily from this, and created, because the one system wasn't approved by the government, I went with this other system where I created I wanted a second story, basically a habitable attic. It was kind of an ambitious design, but I really felt it had a lot of value. Here you can see these 3 phases. You could phase it and start with half a building and add to it as you could afford it. So that led to this what's in Nepali Paral Kogar, which is basically a straw house in Nepali in the country. So here it is. This is the half of that other design with an attic. Similar, just borrowing from the other buildings we had built elsewhere. So similar way of constructing or fabricating bales and using the wall system. Yeah, really very, very similar, except here we did bamboo trusses, and you can see them being made, and then you see them installed with bolted steel plates. We wanted to use as much bamboo as possible. You can see it in the attic floor framing and a split bamboo subfloor, and the underside of that becomes the ceiling. Did also some straw clay walls in the bathroom, or on 2 sides of the bathroom. Used a lot of lime in this project, slaking it from quicklime. And also some split bamboo lath. And then here, I'm gonna show a little video of kids from the local school putting in straw clay, or mixing the straw clay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone could hear that, but they were, in addition to what you saw, they were having a lot of fun. And well, there's a note, you see it later about, a little bit later about some lessons learned, but that you'll tie back into the school kids getting involved. Interior clay plaster with clay paint, exterior clay lime plaster. There were a couple places where we did a lime only plaster on the outside. And then just going back to the kind of the bigger picture on the building, when it first had all its bales up, we were doing some testing, some plaster mixes. And then with it mostly complete with the lime wash on the lower portion and most of our team. And then the building finished. And so actually that was 2019 when that photo was taken. B. Rowan, who was one of our really important team members, did a lot of work with the plasters and the floor and the lime. She has a lot of experience with lime stabilized earth. She's one of the two most prominent straw bale and natural builders in the UK, along with her former partner, Barbara Jones. So we had, she was in Kathmandu very recently. I was pleasantly surprised to hear her call me from there and saying that's where she was. So she was kind enough to go look at the building to see how it's doing since, because we hadn't seen it since 2019. And there were some issues with some elevated moisture. There was a leak in the wall from a roof leak into one part of the wall that we were concerned about. And so you can see what she says here, that it's all doing very well. I was really happy to hear that. And while I'm on the subject of B, she's with Stafford Holmes, another lime expert in the UK, has written 2 books on lime stabilized soil. Here's one of them, the most recent one. Actually, I wrote a little bit on earthquakes in this book. And then a second, or the one that preceded this, lime stabilized, this is more of a practical guide and manual, if that's what you're interested in. That she and Stafford and others, they've done incredible work, especially in southern Pakistan, where the flooding has happened with lime stabilized foundations, and they're doing work in India. I think they've done a little bit in Iraq also, and in most recently in Nepal. This is this wonderful Himalayan view, kind of in the distance from the veranda of of our straw bale house in Nepal. And again, teamwork always takes a team. Just as a resource, there's something called the World Housing Encyclopedia, which has some terrific tutorials on it, with materials that I would consider certainly natural building, reinforced adobe, for example. These stone masonry buildings, as far as I'm concerned, are natural buildings. And then straw bale construction, which is almost complete. Here's the cover of it. So we're hoping to get this out to the public soon. And then just a little bit about I started this out as lessons learned, and then I decided some of these things I had already known for a long time, so I consider them just important principles. So it's a mix of important principles and lessons learned in all this work. So you can kind of read them. I'm not going to go through them one by one. Some of them are what you might already have thought of or already be thinking about. But well, I don't know. Maybe if there's something here that someone sees that they want me to speak more about, when we have questions, you can maybe jot it down or just remember it. But I'll say one I will pick out, which is when I was talking with Darcy Messner, the founder of PaxBob, recently. I asked her what lessons she learned, and she says this one right here. Oops. If you can see my cursor, but design, build schools first. Having if you're trying to do this work and getting it to scale and getting it to replicate, doing house after house after house, it's okay, but schools, there's a lot more. It's a public building. You have young people who are attending school and learning about the building and interacting with the building. It just has a much greater effect if the building system that you're trying to promote or get people comfortable with is in a school as opposed to a home. So it's also a higher bar because schools, of course, those who make decisions about schools, they want to know or be confident about the system that they're building with. So I just thought I'd mention this. At least once, I think I've mentioned the Earthquake Engineering Research Institute. They're headquartered here in California, but their reach is worldwide. There are many programs and presentations on the 2023 Turkey-Syria earthquake, and there's you can just that's kind of a long URL there, but you can just visit eri.org and just search for the Turkey earthquake, and if you're looking for that kind of information, reconnaissance information, and about that earthquake, and then I think we're at about an hour here. What I like to do after I present is just, without talking, just run through some photos of that have taken during the course of my work in these three countries, because maybe just as a reminder that ultimately it's about the people and making connections with people and understanding and having improving people's lives, and of course the technical aspects are very important, but the people aspects are what it's really ultimately comes down to. So I'm just going to run through some images, first going in the same order, with first in Pakistan, then Haiti, and then Nepal. And then just saying thank you in 3 languages here in Urdu. That's me in 2007. In Haitian Creole. And in Nepali. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Martin. It was an amazing presentation. It showed much perspective, which we actually have in our even sorry, in our ancient history, that we are very familiar with these sorts of techniques and the buildings in our own borders. But like seeing this sort of a revival, it's just giving an energy. I have some questions, very few of them. The first one is the rammed earth building that you showed us. I'm imagining, I'm guessing that you guys made it by hand ramming, right? Did you use any machinery?
Well, the rammed earth, I showed 2 rammed earth buildings. Certainly all the straw bale buildings were buildings that we constructed, except for the one from the Italian group in Haiti. The rammed earth building, or the 2 in Nepal that I showed, is that what you're referring to, right?
Yes.
So those we didn't have anything directly to do with those buildings. The first one that I showed was fully constructed when I arrived, and it was built in 2012, and I arrived in Nepal in 2015. The other one was built in 2017 after the earthquake. So I know I developed a relationship, especially with the Nepali architect, Nirpal Adhikari, and he consulted with us. In addition to rammed earth, he's done a lot of work with bamboo in Nepal, and he consulted with us on some of our bamboo work. But so anyway, I wasn't involved in their design or construction, but I imagine they were hand tamped, not with a machine. In the U.S., I have actually rammed earth in the U.S. with a mechanized tamper, but I don't think that's done in Nepal. I think it's all manual.
Okay, thank you very much. So is there any questions from our participants? I'm seeing Mr. Abdulkadir. Yes.
I have a question. Sir, most of our club houses in our country is half century or a century old. Some of in Anatolia region is it looks a little bit poor and a little bit they didn't did maintenance in some of those houses, and people often believe club houses is not that strong and reliable houses. They think it's symbolizes poverty. In earthquake season, I tried to explain how strong can club can be, but people often strongly they don't believe club is not that strong. How can we overcome this bias?
Yeah. So I mentioned that a little earlier with that when I was talking about Pakistan and what are called the kacha and the paka houses, and that takes so many different forms, that bias, and you just described one of them. I think, well, one thing I would suggest, I mentioned this to Merv and Ekin a little earlier before the other attendees were on the call. I've been involved in building code development for natural building materials and systems primarily in the U.S. But in the U.S. we use our model code is what's called the international code, whereas even though it's primarily geared to construction in the design and construction in the U.S. It does have the name international, and it has been used internationally, and in at least different codes have been used in other countries, and they're model codes, so really anyone could use them, and they have a fairly high level of credibility and recognition, not only in the U.S. but outside the U.S. So, with that kind of preamble, I've been the lead or co-author on code sections or appendices on straw bale construction, straw clay construction, cob, and most recently hempcrete. So we have essentially in the U.S. a building code for cob, and it's fairly well developed and engineered, and there's been testing, university testing for seismic. So there are certain things you have to do to make it seismically safe. In particular, there's steel reinforcing that's required, and it depends on the level of seismic risk. Even in the U.S., there's a wide range from almost no risk to high risk, and like here in California, and like you have in Turkey, or especially the southern portions of Turkey. So, what I suggest you do is we could connect somehow after this seminar, and I could give you instructions of how to get this code on cob construction, which we also call sometimes monolithic Adobe. It's similar to Adobe if it's in monolithic form. But anyway, you can look at it. You could if you could show it to people who are skeptical. It has great commentary that goes with it. So there are the code requirements itself, but there's a lot of commentary that explains the code and gives more other information. There's testing reports. Yeah, so that's what I would start with. I think that could be very helpful.
It will be very good. We can publish in our website too and announce the followers.
I'm sorry, say that again, Merv?
If you can share with us, it will be very nice. We can publish it on our website also and announce.
Yeah. So after the seminar, I send you an email with the information, and you can go from there with it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Beneficial. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Welcome.
We have one question by Merve actually. Is that design catalog that you showed us, did it made by the government or by an initiative of architects?
Which design are we talking about?
The one in the one
catalog.
in the Nepal.
The one in Nepal?
Nepal, I think.
Yeah, the catalog for the buildings, how to build. There was some sorts of designs on the cover of it.
Right. So the one that I finished with the bamboo trusses, that one building.
Yes.
Okay. So that was designed almost, I'll say, entirely by me and my consulting engineer. In fact, he's the same engineer who's been involved in a lot of the building code development and including the cob code that I mentioned a minute ago. He and his firm, his engineering firm, they specialize in engineering natural building systems. I think probably, especially seismically, as much or more than any engineering firm in the world. and we live in a high seismic zone in California, so we think about it a lot here. So he engineered that building. We designed it together, essentially. He did most of the structural, but I know a fair amount about structural design too. And he knows a fair amount about architectural. We kind of overlap a little bit. So that was our design. It was not, it did not require government approval, like in the local village. It wasn't, I submitted that design to the National Engineers or the Nepal Engineers Association. They had an open competition in 2016. And so there was nothing consequential about it, really. There's no approvals. It's not like government approval, but I did put it out publicly, but then we built it, basically. So, or a portion of it, because the system we departed from the tested system that was being used in Pakistan. For one, it was effectively a two-story building. And so we had to just engineer things ourselves. But also using the Nepal building code. There is quite a good Nepal building code. So we did use that as a reference as well. We were taking it seriously, as we always do, because there are life safety issues. And we're treating it as if we were getting approval from a local government body.
Did their code included any cob or straw building?
No, they don't have straw bale building in the Nepal code. So
Okay.
but they have engineering principles. And so if you know the strength of the system that you're using, either the ultimate strength or the allowable loads that you can use, what's called allowable stress design, then you can work within the general engineering framework.
Okay. We have one more question by Andagman. Mr. Agman.
Thank you, Mr. Hammer, for your beautiful and valuable presentation. My question is, here in Turkey, we have many relationships with different associations from Germany, from France, now from from the US, and are following the developments from Egypt, Iran, or Mesopotamia region. So my question is, your relationships between, for example, the German Straw Bale Association, because we are following them very closely, and they are working on the standards for the straw bale building system, and trying to define the standards for the mass production, that it's reachable, available for everybody. So what are your international connections with the Germans or with some other countries for setting the standards of this kind of building that it can develop to a mass production, for example? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, no, thanks for the question. So there's especially with straw bale building, but this is also true with other natural building systems, that there's a community of sorts among straw bale building designers and builders, other than people who do it maybe once, for their own use, and that kind of stops there. That happens too, but it's more common where people are involved and you meet someone who's like-minded and share information. And so there's there's for 20, 30 years, there's been a very strong straw bale building community in each country, but also between countries, especially in certain parts of the world, in Europe for certain, well, in the US, where it all started, where at least that system started, and then in Europe, in Australia, New Zealand, both Western and Eastern Europe, parts of South America, and really all over the world. And so we've tended to, we first focus on what's local or relatively local, because that's the framework you're working within. But we have definitely shared information with people in parts in Europe, especially. I mentioned B. Rowan earlier from the UK, who worked on the Nepal project. I've known her for many years, and actually one of my best, a good friend and colleague, very locally, lives in the same city as I. He's German, Dietmar Lorenz, and he knows Dirk Scharmer in Germany with FASBA, right? So FASBA is great. All the German designers, builders, they do terrific work, and they do what you might expect German designers and builders to do. They're very thorough, and they're very organized. They've done great work with straw bale building. We also operate in somewhat different environments. So I know that like even our straw bale code here in the US, I've shared it with the straw bale builders and designers in New Zealand, and they took it and used it as a basis for their straw bale code, but they made a lot of changes too, because it's just a different environment. And but we've shared all kinds of testing. We've shared fire testing and thermal testing, and I'd say we probably don't keep up as much as we might, that might benefit all of us. There are tendencies sometimes we kind of go off in our corner and do our thing, and then we come back, and so we periodically check in with each other for sure, and hear what each other's doing. And I'd be interested to know, like in terms of the standards, what they're doing. I didn't know they were working on a standard. I knew that they were in New Zealand. They were revising their straw bale and their earth, and their New Zealand community's done a tremendous amount of work with testing and code work for earth and construction. But I think it's great that you're reaching out to different people in different parts of the world, but especially what you think fits best for Turkey. There's a whole history, of course, of building in Turkey. I know Matthew has done a lot of work with straw bale building in Turkey, right? So I'm not sure if I'm answering the question or not, or if I'm just rambling on now, but
yeah, you are free to ask a question. I think Mr. Akman would like to answer it.
Sorry?
Would you like to answer the question?
I became my answer. Thank you very much.
Is there any other questions from our participants?
I have one more question about especially hot weathers. For example, I'm not sure, by the way, but I think Haiti is much hotter than Nepal, perhaps. And there, for example, in Haiti, when you used totally straw bale walls, how was really the performance in the hot times, summer times, for example? You made also a test for seasonal tests.
We didn't we didn't do a test per se, like we didn't, you know, temperature or that kind of thing, something measurable. But we paid attention to it, and and just being in the building, it stays in the hot weather. It stays cooler longer, right, inside. So the temperature or the thermal aspect of it, I don't worry about as much as I do moisture. If it's well, in buildings, it's all about thermal comfort for me. That's what it comes down to, and thermal performance is not only a matter of thermal resistance, like how insulating a material is. It's also about mass. It's really the combination of those two, and a little bit there's some where moisture enters into the picture too. So I know that in concrete buildings or concrete block and concrete buildings, brick masonry buildings, they in hot weather they become notoriously uninhabitable during extended periods of hot weather. And Haiti had that problem. It was and still is a significant problem, right? Especially at the end of the day, the buildings are unbearable. No one wants to be inside them. You've probably experienced this in Turkey, right? So I think that for me, straw bale buildings have the I don't know almost perfect balance of mass and insulation, because the mass being the plaster and the insulation being the straw, and so it does well when either one of those is needed, the mass and or the insulation. Whereas masonry, concrete, they just have mass. That's it. They don't really have insulation to speak of, unless you add to it. So it can't hold on to so much heat that it becomes unbearable if it's with an extended hot weather. It's always cooler than a masonry or concrete building in hot weather. Yeah, that's what we found. I mean, logically that's the case, and that's what we found in practice.
I mean, did you have a comparison of cope, for example, more earth and straw mix, and on straw bale wall with only earth plaster, kind of difference in this hot
Between the techniques, is there any like a big
performance
difference?
was really in the hot summer season?
No, I think, well, mass can be good in hot weather. It depends a little bit on ventilation. It depends on diurnal temperature. Like if you can get a 20-degree or more change in nighttime and daytime temperature, and the more the better, and you're able to sort of flush out the heat from the day at night, then mass is good in that way, because it keeps the building cooler longer. If you're just talking about hot weather, so because even like I showed that earth ship in Haiti, that was our next door neighbor there. That's a massive building. It has very little insulation, and it actually has a nice vent at the apex, at the little, in the roof, so hot air can rise and exit the building. You can flush out the heat, and I spent some nights in there, a few nights, and it was really pleasant. So I did have that comparison, really, that building was literally 20 feet away from our building. So, so they were in that climate, they both did pretty well. Whereas the other building that was on site was a conventional concrete block and concrete slab building, which was just really terrible. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
uncomfortable.
One more.
Okay, so if there isn't any other question, is there any?
There's one more, I think. Under snow, performance of straw bale under snow. In minus degrees, they asked what can be the performance of straw bale.
I
So
think this question would be more valid for the Nepal.
Right.
Yes, but well, there are straw bale buildings built in cold climates all over the world. I think they're especially good in cold climates with cold winters. That's where they really shine. And so you mean, so did you say snow, like where there's a lot of snow?
I think minus degree
Uh,
means have a condensation kind of, I think.
Oh, condensation.
Condensation.
Okay, the condensation, that's a different question. That's a very good question. So condensation problems occur in whenever relatively warm, moist interior air goes through the building envelope and meets a cold surface. So it's especially a problem, or potentially a problem, in cold, very cold weather. So you have to be careful in that regard. The main thing is, there are a couple things. To have have the interior finish of the straw bale walls be very tight, airtight, so that air isn't leaking into the wall and getting through the wall and hitting a very cold exterior plaster, for example. So that includes things wherever joints occur. Just any good plaster itself is usually an adequate vapor barrier, but it's where it meets other surfaces. So if there's an electrical outlet, excuse me, or if it meets the floor or the ceiling, any place where there's potentially a gap, you want to really be sure to make them tight with gaskets or some kind of sealant, or even plaster if it doesn't crack, if it stays intact. So I'd say that's the first thing. And then you do want plasters that are vapor permeable, as vapor permeable as possible. So that if there is any moisture in the wall, it can move either direction. It tends to go. You don't want it to get trapped. You want it to just keep moving out of the wall and in either direction, almost at any time of year. You want it to be able to go either way. But I think the main thing is just to have an airtight seal on the interior finish of the wall.
I have one more question. By the way, foundation, mostly you also use earthback foundation on this. Do you use drainage? Do you make a waterway? Because it seems the foundation is in the soil, so it needs water permeability.
So we, well, in all the buildings that used bag foundation, we used gravel bag, not earth bag. So for one, okay, I don't feel as comfortable doing earth bag in the foundation. Once you come out of the ground, I'm okay with it, and we've done that. But in the ground, I think it should be gravel, not earth. It's just more in case moisture gets in, you want it to just sort of not saturate it. You want it to be able to drain out. But you asked, I'm not sure, there was like another part to that question about wrapping it with.
Especially when these houses are made in the earthquake zone, we have similar problems. We have on a plain area, so water can stay there. You know, like when it's the rainy season, there can be a risk to somehow drain the water. Otherwise, even though you made a good foundation, somehow if the water stay long, can be a problem.
Okay, yeah. So with well, any type of like gravel or rubble or stone that's in the foundation in any way, like in the trench, in the stem wall even, but definitely in a trench, you want to drain, you want to have an outlet, a drain outlet for the foundation trench. Some way. If otherwise you're digging a kind of a moat, you know, and if it's trapped and there's a lot of groundwater, yes, rainwater can, and even groundwater can get in there and stay there. And it's especially a problem if you're near a freezing situation where the water gets in above freezing and then there's freezing and then it expands and then you've got some real problems. So I just designed a straw bale building that's under construction now where we did a gravel trench or a crushed stone footing that went quite deep. It went down we got it down to frost line, but I made sure that the trench, the bottom of the trench sloped to an outlet where if it did start to fill with water, it would drain out. You need to give it an outlet. And in fact, I was just talking with Anthony Dente, who's the structural engineer I've been working with about this, because we have some building code sections, some recent ones we created for gravel or stone, crushed stone footings or rubble, what are different, they go by different names. And we were talking also about possibly putting a pipe in the foundation, like a drainage pipe, a perforated pipe, which I think that's the most surefire way to do it. But the pipe has to be strong enough to be in the foundation, right? It can't collapse. You know, you can't, if it's holding the weight of the building, it needs to maintain its shape and be able to not interfere with the load path into the ground from the building, and it needs to function as a drain. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
So, any more questions? Okay, I guess I can say thank you very much, Mr. Hammer, for your very valuable presentation. I learned a lot on my behalf, and I will definitely contact you for further information. What can we do in our own earthquake zone? And thank you very much again.
All right.
Would like to also say something.
Oh, sorry. Yes, I would like to give the word to Mr. Akman.
Cool. Okay, thank you, Mr. Hammer. Thank you very much for your valuable presentation. Now, I just want to announce our next webinar. It's on the 3rd of May, and with Tsuneo Ishikawa from Japan. He will share us his works about wood structures for the earthquake resilience, and the webinar will be probably in Turkey at 16 o'clock because of the time difference between Japan and Turkey, but we will announce that later on. So that was a just a little information now. And well, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. Hammer.
And I have a question then. Am I able to attend that seminar?
yes, of course.
In any case, surely.
Surely, but he only knows Japanese, surely, and only German. So the webinar will be German and translated by Ant to Turkish. So it will not be English. This is one point.
Okay, well, I might enlist my colleague Dietmar Lorenz and see if he.
Surely, I'll share with you the link.
Yes, that will be nice. So, because as Merve said, I will one by one translate it from the German to Turkish. And so if you have the opportunity to translate it in your language, that will be nice. We appreciate if you are with us. Thank you very much.
Okay, did Gernot Mickey give his talk in German, I presume?
No.
Yes.
He speak in English. I will send you the links. It's in our YouTube channel. I will send you the links. Of
yeah, I'd love to hear that. Yeah. And do you want me to send you a PDF of or even a PowerPoint? I don't know. What do you want?
Both would work for
both.
us.
Yes, it will be very.
Okay. The only thing I'll have to see what the file size is because of the videos. It might the videos may not be. Well, I'll see.
You can send by WeTransfer. It will be okay, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah. And I would like to make a small correction. The next webinar will be at 3rd of June.
Yeah. Thank you for self-correcting. I noticed that. Yeah.
No, it's the 30th of May.
At 30.
At 30 of May.
Sorry.
3 of May. That's what.
30 of May.
Okay.
So it's again.
It's a Tuesday, right?
Tuesday again. We have it every Tuesday. So the only difference will be normally we have it at with the Turkish time at 19 o'clock or 19:30, but now because of the time difference between Japan and Turkey, we have to make it at 16 o'clock in Turkey with the Turkish time. So that's 4 o'clock p.m.
So it will be too early for USA, I think.
No, that's not too bad. That's 6 a.m. California time, so it's not terrible.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for everybody for participating, especially to Mr. Hammer. Thank you very much again for this presentation. So see you everybody in 2 weeks again.
2 weeks. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.